It's time for another musical interlude. Let's get started. Talking with people with music in their genes, their blood, and in their soul. You are watching Musical Interlude.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Musical Interlude. Today's guest is JL. Let's get the show started. First question for you, and being in music, um, when can you say your earliest memory of was acknowledging your music talent?
Wow, that's a great question. I can date back my music interest and love for music to, I don't know, like preteens listening to a lot of music. Radio was always on, or CDs. But talent, that's a different story. I don't know. That kind of came later, and it's still a struggle to acquire more talent and skills than not. Especially the more I learn about it, the more I realize I had a lot more to learn about it. But it's a great question.
When did you first, how do I say, when did you first start creating music? As far as when did you come to the point in your life this is something you want to do and you want to do it seriously? And how did you go about doing that?
Great. Yeah, that was kind of a slow transition. I picked up the guitar. I was, a teenager, and I sort of like, fooled around with it. And then when it was time to go to college, I decided to join the Conservatory of Music, where I grew up around in the Alps in Geneva, Switzerland. And then I joined bands and sort of, headed in that direction. But it wasn't that I had sort of a great sense of this is what I want to do. I really didn't know how things would play out. It's an extremely difficult business, right? And it sort of evolved from there. But it wasn't like I made this very conscious decision and knew exactly what I was going to do with the plan of action. As more opportunities came up, and I sort of went with it to the extent that I could.
So being in this business, I guess you can say you kind of fell into it. What are some of the lessons you learned during your process, during your journey?
Yeah, and still learn. Well, for one thing, you have to be extremely, extremely patient. Nothing takes place very fast. That's certainly from my experience, right? For other people, it's different, of course. Extremely patient, extremely focused too. It's easy to get distracted, to get thrown off, especially that it's a business of pretty much constant rejection, right? Um, it's great when people love what you do and are totally into it, but for the most part, you'll find that people will also just pass and not be that interesting. And you need to stick with what you believe, right? You need to stay with what you love to do, and that's probably the most important lesson for myself is identify what you love to do it with all the passion you can bring to it, and let things happen if they are to happen one way or another. But make sure you do what you love to do, and in life, hang out with the people you love to hang out with, do what you love to do to the extent that you can, and let everything else sort of play out because you control very, very little. The world is a big place and people have lots of interests, and it's very difficult to sort of realize your plan and dreams, and you need a lot of luck. So you may as well do what you love to do.
Yes. So, your latest album, Ride the Wave. What was the inspiration, and why is it called Ride the Wave?
So I was watching, during the pandemic, more so than before, I was on a lot of social networks. And a friend of mine is a photographer, and he takes pictures of surfers. And he has these great pictures. So, every few days, I would see these pictures. And to me, it sort of is a great image for what happens to you in life. One wave after another, sometimes good waves, right? Like putting an album together and releasing it and meeting people and getting great reviews or certainly accolades for it. That's a good wave. The pandemic, not such a good wave at all, as far as I'm concerned. So, but that's all you can do, right? From a surfer's point of view, you need to catch the wave and ride it to wherever it's going to go, and hopefully it's not going to topple you over too quickly, so you can have some fun. And that's where it came from. These images of surfers riding their waves, however they came up, and taking life as it comes, taking the pandemic, taking everything else in life, and ride that wave or these waves as they come.
So tell us about one of the songs on the album, the title and the inspiration behind it.
Well, there are quite a few, 12 altogether. So one of them is actually a fun, upbeat, with a little bit of a Latin feel to it, and it's called Tequila Kiss. And again, spending so much time indoors during the pandemic, I ended up binge watching lots of shows, and that included the Vampire Diaries that was on the TV before that, and I saw that on Netflix. And the lead star in it, her name is Nina Dobrev, did what I thought was really an incredible job, since she played two different characters. And then I started following her on Instagram, and she does these really interesting things. She's an animal lover. She travels the world, and she also jumps off airplanes, skydiving. She went swimming with sharks. So she's full of energy and full of, perhaps a little bit addicted to adrenaline, but certainly she does things that I would never do, right? And that sort of inspired okay, well, what would happen if I were to meet this lady? And so I invented this situation as a fan, a follower, who never ever gets to meet her, of course, but talking about what it's like to watch her life, to be a follower, to be a fan. And I came up with this Tequila Kiss because she's apparently, from what I've read, she loves tequila. And of course, as the fan, I'm thinking, hey, maybe one day I'll get a kiss, right? Which is obviously never going to happen. But the point being, this sort of made up story, and it's gotten really great reviews and great feedback, and it's been on radio stations. So it's a fun song.
Now, are you?
And I would say, Caleb KBC Sherman, who produced the album, did a magnificent job on that particular song, as he did with all of them.
So are you a one-man band, or do you have other musicians and singers on?
So there are other musicians, and in this particular situation, though, the work was done from here in New York City and also in Nashville, where Caleb, as I mentioned earlier, the producer, has his studio. There was an interesting exchange of files and music, and over time, really capturing great performances, so that it does sound like a nice, album and fun to listen to. But definitely, because of the pandemic, I couldn't fly there, and it was the best way to do it overall. So, but I play guitar on many of the tracks, or all of the tracks, and Caleb plays some of the instruments as well. He's really, really gifted. and there you have this full band, you know, at the end of the process, and it's a lot of fun, I must say. I mean, you know, it's my record, of course, but what I mean is, I really have a great time listening to it, and I really recommend at least people to check it out because it's fun. It's really a lot of fun.
Now, I'm assuming this is not your first album, correct?
Correct. Yes, I have done a few of those, and also some EPs, shorter plays. This one is sort of came out of this situation where because there was nothing else to do really, couldn't go out and play out and you know, network or hang out. I wrote a lot of songs. I wrote 30 songs at the beginning of last year. And Caleb actually connected with me via Facebook. We hadn't talked in a while. And, you know, he said, hey, what's going on? You want to make some music? I said, well, I just happen to have all these songs, you know, give it a listen, tell me what you think. And he picked 12, and we ended up doing that album. But it came really about because not having anything else to do but sing and play guitar and write. There was quite a lot of material, whereas in the past with others, the writing was concentrated, but you know, it was not as lots of choices that you wrote. You get more focused because you have other things to do. In this case, it was just write, and watch TV and you know, browse through Instagram and whatnot.
Awesome. So were you able to, the past summer, were you able to do any outdoor concerts?
No, unfortunately, it was really, the album was released in August. So up until close to that, we were finalizing the mixes and everything else. And then we got into a whole period of promotion that we're still in, and you know, organizing things in between the waves, especially in New York City, where there was quite a bit of difficulties in being able to get people into facilities, and also having to be, of course, vaccinated here, and it was just not, it just didn't work out so well so far. But hopefully, better luck in 2022, right, for all of us. Certainly, I'm hoping that everybody sort of can get back to a somewhat normal life, if not completely normal life, and COVID-free. That would be great. Right?
Now, are you capable of, because I know in New York City, in order to, I guess, sell, you need a license. So if you had a free concert, would you ever consider doing a free concert outdoors somewhere, renting a spot, or?
Oh yeah, any opportunity that would present itself, I don't have any restrictions in that way. It all depends, obviously, on the format. If it's a solo acoustic performance, of course, I'm right there with my guitar. If it's more like a band opportunity, then it depends on the availability of band members and of course the budget, right? So, but you know, I'll do anything, anytime, anywhere that involves music. So I'm open to things, but we also have to abide by the rules. Otherwise, I think anyway, that we just perpetrate and delay what could be back to normal, and that's not good for anybody. You know?
All right. Well, I don't think we'll ever be back to normal or back to the way things were, even if COVID is.
I think you're right. It doesn't look good, but I tend to be more hopeful than not. But I think you're right.
Yeah. So are you the type of musician who, because you said this was released in August and you're still in the process of promoting, are you a one-track mind type of musician, or do you usually are quietly in the background working on the next project?
Well, it's a combination, actually. One is I don't have you know, means to blast through the media and all sorts of online opportunities to let the world know that my music exists when it comes out, right? It takes an enormous amount of cash, and I don't have that. So promotion of music is a long process, because even if you do have massive amount of money to advertise, promote, and let the world know that your music exists, you need to sustain it anyway. So it's a long game. You know, in my case, you know, you think about an album or release, you have to think a year, 18 months, and longer. But at the same time, you can't just wait till that is over. For one thing, the inspiration doesn't wait, right? It's not like I write music and then it doesn't come up and I don't think about it until, oh, gee, I got to go back to it. You know, if I pick up my guitar, chances are that 10, 15 minutes later, I'm thinking about a new song and writing a new one, or at least pieces of it. So, and I think it's extremely important for me, right, to write as much as possible and try different ideas and try new things. Especially, I think one of what I like about this latest album is that it's got a lot of variety. And if I don't write a lot often, I find myself sort of repeating things that I'm comfortable with. So I'd rather have a more diversified album with new things in it, rather than sort of keep doing what I'm comfortable with and sort of keep doing the same thing over and over, because that's my niche, if you will, or comfort. So I like a comfort zone. So I like to challenge myself and come up with different things and different influences and different ways of, you know, writing a song and certain lyrics, so that it's more interesting to listen to for anybody who gets to listen to it.
So you are on the radio hits charts. You're on the independent music or indie world charts, and you were also on the Grammy nomination ballots. What exactly how do you get to accomplish those goals, and how did you feel once you first heard of those accomplishments?
Well, they're all sort of different in the way they played out, right? The last one, the being on the ballots, was a complete surprise. I had no sense that that was going to happen at all. It wasn't even something I attempted to do. I'm working with a great team in Nashville, Michael Stover, who owns MTS Management, and the credit goes to him for submitting the record to be considered. The fact that it came out and was on the ballot for Best Pop Vocal Album, that was great, but certainly a total surprise. And I am, you know, not familiar with the whole process, so I wouldn't be able to speak to it. But that was great. It's at least, you know, really rewarding that people listen and have, you know, a good appreciation for the work that went into it. And certainly, especially what KBC Sherman did as a producer, I'm like in awe of his work. As far as the other, it was more the regular promotion steps that take place, submitting the record to radio stations, interns needs reports to various charts reporting services. And it's fantastic when stations decide to play an album, because obviously all you can do is submit, right? And the program directors, the DJs, whoever makes the final decision at these stations, they can pass, right? And they can just move on to the next. So it was great. The Tequila Kiss was well received, and a couple of other songs from the album. And there are still stations playing. The last report I got from non-commercial stations, that 73 stations at the album being played, from light to heavy rotation. So it's very, very rewarding, and I'm grateful for that. But all of that is through submissions, you know, and that's all you can do. Same with the reviews. Michael Stover does a great job letting the world know the album exists, and after that, of course, the people decide. The reviewers decide if they want to write about it. The stations decide if they want to play it, and that's all you can do.
Yes. So there are people out there who are, some, I guess you can say, got over it. Some are still in the mindset of being resentful or regretful that they never got a chance to follow their passion, and they have the mindset that, it's too late. I don't know that people realize now is the time to actually follow their passion. So what encouraging words would you give someone who still wishes they could have and they don't believe they still can? What would you tell them to continue to follow their passion?
Well, it's a great question, because I believe that it's never too late. Obviously, it's whatever you love to do, hey, give it a try. What you have to be very careful with is that you may not get the results that you hope for, but that's a different consideration. Do something you love. Whether that something is, taking a ride down, by the river on a bicycle because you love that and it's fun and you're out, enjoying the nice weather and relaxing, or play music, or anything else that you want to do. As far as having expectations of how that plays out with the rest of the world and where it takes you, I would say, that's a completely different view of what could happen. There's no way to tell. And certainly I don't know, right? I couldn't say, hey, do it this way or do it that way based on what you're trying to achieve. But for yourself, if playing guitar and singing and writing song is something that you believe is fun, then do it. Don't stop yourself. Have fun, try it. The worst thing that can happen is, you try it and you go, well, actually that's not as much fun as riding my bicycle on Sunday. But at least discover that for yourself, and don't do it because you want some judgment to be passed that is positive or not. That's just, you don't control that. There is no way to control how people are going to react to anything. And it's just the way life is. But you can decide what you do with your free time and what you do, with your life, and enjoy that. And certainly making music is, in my humble opinion, a great way to spend your life. Certainly, that's the way I see it.
Awesome. My last question for you: if you had a chance to work with anyone in the music business, whether they be dead or alive, well-known or unknown, who would it be and why?
That's a great question. There are so many talented musicians out there, right? And I certainly would love to sit down with Chopin and figure out, how he came up with these unbelievable melodies and so many others that have passed. But nowadays there are such great talent on the charts. I love to write songs with, people like Katy Perry, or, I have such a wide interest. One person that fascinates me in a way who, achieved such a tremendous career is Jay-Z. When you listen to his work, where he took that business-wise, and you're certainly not in the same genres by any stretch of the imagination. Just brilliant, right? But having, an opportunity to even just sit down and discuss that and talk about it, that would be great. And of course, if Nina, Dobrev is available to be in my Tequila Kiss video, that would be great.
You don't know I exist. One of so many following you, whatever you do. I live in dreaming while you kiss the beasts, the vampires on my TV screen. I'm waiting for the day when we get to meet. I dare to ask you out and you say too sweet. I'm leaning for the kiss and it's just pure bliss. Finally get to taste all the salt there on your.
That is all the time we have for you today on Musical Interlude. I want to thank our guest, Elle, for stopping on by and being a guest and sharing. And of course, you, the audience, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.